and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. We are a group of spiritual free thinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. Is it on? Nothing. Is that better? Is that better? Welcome to UUCC. I am Laura Wink, your worship associate for this morning, and our service will be led by Reverend Tony Larson, who's joining us over Zoom. This service is also being live streamed to our YouTube channel. We will plan on continuing with hybrid worship services throughout the church year, so you can join us each week here in person, on Zoom, or later on our YouTube channel as you prefer. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's book in the entryway, and whether it's your first visit or your 100th, we are glad you came. I have a few announcements to share. Please wear a mask. Masks are available for anyone who forgot one. RE and childcare will be provided today by Reverend Eileen and Kaya Mells. We will be collecting the cards for Joys and Sorrows after our first hymn. Please fill them out or type them into the chat box on Zoom if you have something you'd like to share. Join us at our worship Zoom link from 12 to 12:30 on Wednesdays during Lent, starting February 22nd, for a meditation series focused on discernment through creativity. Next week after the service will be our second Sunday potluck. Please bring a dish to pass if you're able, but all are welcome to stay and share the meal with us either way. Are there any other announcements for the good of the community? I'll say that game night last night was lots of fun and the potluck was delicious, so if you're hungry next week, definitely stay because the food is good. And I'd like to invite Danielle Lyon to come up and share a Canvas moment.
One of the earliest services I attended here at UUCC included the story of two neighboring communities, both completely sure that they were the ones doing everything right, and everyone else must have gotten it wrong because they had received a message that you are loved, and assumed it was revealed to them to be an exclusive reference. In the end, the full message was revealed to be, you are loved, and so are they. Coming to Unitarian Universalism from a faith tradition focused on bringing others toward the right path to salvation can feel a bit disorienting. What are the rules and boundaries? It turns out we do have a few, but also a lot more room for exploration and space to not need to be right. During a recent potluck discussion, we were invited to share something we value about coming to UUCC. And for me, I think it is well summed up that here we have the humility to rejoice that you are loved, and so are they. When I write my annual pledge, it is with the knowledge that the money I share helps support not only our physical space, but spreading love to the community within and beyond our walls.
Ready to enter a space of worship? Quiet your cell phones? Or not?
Good idea. As we prepare to be fully together, I remind us all to silence our phones and devices. We now enter a space of worship. And Rory and Ewan, would you like to come up and help me light the chalice? You've done this. Okay. Ready? We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise, that beauty, truth, and good be sung, through every land, in every tongue.
In Unitarian Universalism, we believe that you've got to find the truth in your own heart. You must use your own mind to find out what is good. As the book of Ecclesiasticus puts it, full of your own heart stand, for there is no one more faithful to you than your heart. Your own soul sometimes tells you more than 7 watchmen who sit above in a high tower. And the Buddhist Dhammapada says, well makers lead the water wherever they like, arrow makers bend the arrow, carpenters bend the wood, wise people fashion themselves. Join in our opening hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit.
We are a community that holds one another in our celebrations and in our pain. We welcome you to share your joys and sorrows by writing them down on the card you found on your chair and placing it in the basket when it comes by you, or by typing in the chat box in Zoom. Know that whatever your heart is holding today, whether shared or not, we are with you. We have one joy.
First, we're going to have a story.
First, we're going to have a story.
Okay.
All right. I have a story that about a woman who was very kind. Everyone around her thought she was pretty neat, especially her children. Whoops, I noticed my picture behind me is a little bit crooked. Here we go. Well, it looks crooked anyway. We'll just let that go. That picture behind me, though, was painted by my sister Alice, who died a few years ago. And I have her still in my heart and her art on my walls. So that's kind of nice. Anyway, in the story, there was this woman was very kind. Children loved her. She would listen to kids and not just kind of go, "Oh, that's nice, honey," but would actually listen to what they had to say. And she was kind to people. And when people were angry or said mean things, she would just listen carefully and to answer out of goodness in her heart rather than just anger back. And animals loved her. So she was once asked, "What is it that makes you so kind? You're kind of a mensch, you're the kind of person that we'd like to be." And she told them that she had been given this little a diamond or some kind of jewel or magic stone. And she said, "And this stone, I was told, would help me to be kind." And her three children decided that they would like that stone when she died. And each one went up to her since she was getting older and said, have you thought about who you're going to give the stone to?" And she told each of them that she would give each of them the stone. But they didn't know that she told the others. Each one thought that they were just getting the stone alone. In order to make this come true, she went to a jeweler in town and showed the had, and she said, "Can you make one that looks exactly like this?" And the jeweler said, "Yes, I can." So the jeweler made two more stones. So she had three of them. Each child got one. Of course, they didn't know at this time that the other one had gotten it too. And after she died, at some point, her three children discovered that each of them had the stone. Probably one of them said, "I don't know if I ever told you, but I got Mom's stone." And the other one said, "Well, no, I got her stone." And the other one said, "Well, I got her stone." And they said, "How can that be?" And he decided to go to a judge and find out which one was the original one. So he found a jeweler judge who did that kind of thing. And he looked at the stones and said, "Really can't tell the difference between one and another." And I said, "Well, how will we know who got the magic stone?" "Well, you don't need to find out from me. You'll know by the way you live. Whoever of you lives in such a way that it's clear that you have kindness in your heart for everybody, you'll be the one that got the real stone, the magic stone." So each of them lived their lives that way, trying to live up to what their mother had taught them. No, in a way, they were all right, because each of us, something like a beautiful stone inside of us. It's not something you can see, but each of us has what we call in our UU principles inherent worth and dignity, compassion, kindness. Each of us has that inside, and each of us can bring that out. And you don't actually have to have a magic stone to do that, although it can be a helpful prop. Remind you that each of us has a magic stone that no one else can see, but we have it by the way we live. As good Unitarian Universalists, practicing our principles, everyone will know that we have the magic stone. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts of both time and money support our church in its work. Each week, we'd like to spotlight a group or committee and thank them for their gift of time. This week, the group is Religious Ed and Childcare. Every week, we have volunteers go downstairs to help with providing RE, and Nancy Reed is the coordinator for that. And every week, we need help with childcare, and Kaya Mills is our coordinator for that. Our what is the actual term? Childcare assistant. Thank you. 1/4 of our plate collection for the money season goes to Called to Care, a group working to welcome refugees to our community. You can give to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check into the basket or by one of the options on your screen. Please make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. And we now gratefully accept our offering. And now I will share our joys and sorrows. Ewan did a great job writing his name and says he's happy with his new puppy pineapple pizza. Congratulations, Ewan. And Jeff Gretton shares that they're holding their breaths for Matt Gretton introducing his mushroom jerky at the Fiery Food Festival in New Mexico. And I'll now drop a stone for these and the joys and sorrows left in the silence of our hearts. Whatever is in your heart today, we are with you. At this time, if there are any children who would like to go downstairs for childcare with Reverend Eileen and Kaya, please head on down.
Jalaluddin Rumi, the Muslim mystic, said, "Say that the holy temple of the Kaaba is after the form of the tabernacle of God in heaven, which is made out of a single ruby. As angels move around that holy seat above, so pilgrims move around 7 times that sacred house in Mecca. Once when some pilgrims journeyed to the Kaaba, they found themselves in a fruitless valley, just looking up at a big stone house. fought with zeal to find God, but did not. Long had they marched in a circle from the house around the house of stone, when within a voice was heard saying, "Stand here to worship stone." The door in God's true house, the house of truth, the home of the heart. Are they who enter there? Tabrizi, leaving the desert, made a pilgrimage to his own home, that it was a temple. Spirit of life, we do sometimes look for temples of stone, tabernacles of certainty, where the truth lies. Find ourselves marching around in circles. Help us to remember that the house of truth is found in our own hearts and the hearts of those around us. Blessed are we when we enter there, leaving the desert behind to make a pilgrimage to our own heart and home, and to find that it is a temple of truth and love and holiness. Blessed be, and amen. Let us be in a spirit of silent meditation for a few moments.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Giving life shape of justice, roots holy flows, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Before we jump into this sermon, we're getting some audio issues where we're losing a lot of your words, and it might be internet bandwidth. So if it keeps breaking up during the sermon, we might turn off your video and see if that helps.
There we go. All right. I have set kind of a daunting task before us today, which is to talk about the difference between religion and spirituality. The problem here is that these words are really kind of synonyms. All right, shall I just go on? Yes. Okay. And the problem here is that these two words are really kind of synonyms. If you look up religion and spirituality in a thesaurus, you usually see them both listed in each other's list of similar words. Before the 20th century, before 1900, the words were used interchangeably. No one then would have asked, are you religious or are you spiritual? Because the answer they get would probably be, of course I'm spiritual. I go to church, don't I? Or, of course I'm religious. I do spiritual stuff, don't I? But about 100 years ago, beginning sometime in the early 1900s, there came to be more of an emphasis on private versus public. The word religious began to be used more for public expressions of faith and spiritual for more private ones or individual ones. Consequently, religious tended to refer more often to organized and historical traditions. Spiritual came to refer to less organized, adapt-as-you-go practices. We begin to hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. The trouble, though, is that while many people today make a distinction between religion and spirituality, it's not always clear what makes something spiritual as to religious. A colleague of mine, the Reverend James Ford, another UU minister, put it this way. The word spirituality is very much in the air. Even hard-headed Unitarian Universalists are now questioning after spiritual things. Of course, he says, it is hard to put a finger on what is this spiritual that so many are seeking. As I can tell, it has come to be something of a garbage word, signifying just about anything from astrology to Zen. Or as the Lutheran sociologist and theologian Martin Marty put it in the Christian Century some years ago, spirituality is that contemporary code word for atheist non-committal religion. A evasive term that may refer to little more than a warm tingle in the toes. There's a play called Skylight by David Hare that has this dialogue in it. The character Tom is saying, Alice, she's got hold of this bloody word spiritual. It's one of the words I've never quite understood. I mean, I've always hated the way people use it. They use it to try to bump their way up. Oh, I've had a spiritual experience, they say. The end of the argument. Spiritual meaning it's mine and shove off. Use it to prove they're sensitive. They want to dignify quite ordinary things. Religion, that is something different. I like religion because religion has rules. It's based on something which actually occurred. Believe in. And what's more, what makes it worth following, I do, mind you, there's some expectation of how you're meant to behave. Spiritual, well, it's all wishy-washy. It means, well, for me, this is terribly important, but I'm damned if I can really say why. A Unitarian Universalist minister has cataloged a number of different ways that he's heard the word spiritual used. And if I have something to show you on the screen, is it possible to show that, or will that not work?
Yes, we can try that.
Well, let's try it and we'll see if it works. Okay. Okay, to start your video. Alrighty. Spiritual means emotional. Service made you cry, it was spiritual. Spiritual means Eastern. Spiritual means Eastern, as in Buddhism and Hinduism are more spiritual than Christianity. Third one is spiritual means exotic. Usually that means with lots of ritual, like they lit candles and incense and they chanted and rang bells. It was a very spiritual service. Spiritual means quiet. No one said a thing. It was a very spiritual moment. Spiritual means new age. Astrology to trance channeling, from healing crystals to tarot. Spiritual means private or personal, as in, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. Can mean I don't go to church, but I really like sunsets. At any rate, spiritual is a multi-meaning word, and I probably shouldn't even try to define it or distinguish it from religion. But of course, I'm going to anyway, with this proviso. Please take what I am about to say with at least a pound of salt. Clear way to divide up these two words, religion and spirituality. And my way of doing it is just one of many possible. I'm going to start with the word's origins. Again, the word religion, the Latin religio, comes from the Latin verb religo, meaning I tie up, I fasten together. And we get our word ligament, same word. The ligament means to tie together. The ligament is something that ties parts of your body together. Now, people are fond of harking back to the Latin verb, tie up, and they say that religion is what binds people together, and that's true. However, although the Latin word religo means to bind together, the noun religio had a more specific and narrow meaning. Religio meant scrupulousness or conscientious exactness. The original sense of religion then had to do with being tied up or bound to rules, certain prescriptions and regulations. In fact, to ask what a person's religion in its original sense is something like asking what set of rules they follow. Spiritual, on the other hand, comes from the Latin spiritus, air or breath, or wind or spirit, spirit, which in turn comes from the Latin spiro, meaning I breathe. What is breath? Well, it's air that goes in and out of your body. Wind? Well, that's air too. It's moving air. And what's fragrance or smell? That's also air, only as experienced through our noses. Air, breath, wind, fragrance. They were all the same thing, really, to the ancients. They had one word for all of them: spiritus. Now, the Greek word spirit or air was pneuma. You have words like pneumatic, like the pneumatic tube at the bank, pneumonia, a breathing disease, pneumococcus, pneumocystis, pneumonectomy, and my favorite, pneumoneutral-microscopic silico-volcanic coniosis, which is the longest word in the English language. And in theology, pneumatology is just a theological term for the study of the Holy Spirit. Now, what's interesting about this, or pneuma, or ruach, that's the Hebrew version of it, they're invisible. Watch this. Did you see the tissue move? All right, did you see what moved the tissue? Not really. You saw my lips move, but you didn't see what moved it. You just witnessed an invisible power. You can call it air or breath, or I call it Hurricane Tony, but the ancients would have called it spirit. You know why they used incense and anointed people with oil in their ceremonies? Incense is a kind of air, something you smell but don't see. Painting with sweet-smelling oil or perfume gives you a new kind of breath, a new air around you, something you could smell but cannot see. Incense and oil were common symbols of a God's spirit. In fact, the word Christ, from which we get the word, comes from the Greek Christos, anointed. And Christos, in turn, comes from the Hebrew word Mashiach, or as you could say it in English, Messiah, again, meaning anointed. An anointed person was one who had God's breath around them, God's wind or spirit. Incidentally, we do have a trace of this association even in English, gust, as in a gust of wind. It is the word ghost or spirit. In German, that'd be Geist. Like the Zeitgeist is the spirit of the age, but actually in German, the word for spirit is the same as ghost. So it's the ghost of the age, the spirit of the age. Which reminds me, someone was translating a passage in the Bible into German, and then they translated that into English, and it came out as the ghost is agreeable, but the meat is soft. And that was a translation of is willing, but the flesh is weak. And that's the ghost is agreeable and is soft. And when you read the Bible, you do, you'll find that it says right at the beginning of the very first book, beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the earth, of the deep. The Ruach of God was moving over the face of the earth. Now, some Bibles translate Ruach as the Spirit of God, some say the wind of God, some say the breath of God. Because for the ancients, they were all the same thing. They just didn't know that air is made up of physical atoms and molecules. To them, it was invisible power. They make a big distinction between breath and spirit, as we do. Also, when people die, they stop breathing. So the ancients believed your breath was your life force. Why we use the word expire to mean die. Expire comes from ex, meaning out, as in exit and ex-husband, ex-wife, and plural, meaning I breathe. Expire means to breathe out, literally. And for the ancients, that meant breathing out your life force. Expire means to breathe through in. Aspire means to breathe toward. Expire means to breathe again. Inspire means to breathe in. If you're inspired, that means something new was breathed into you, perhaps a new idea. If you write it down and it's very good, we might even call it the inspired word. And if enough people do that, we'll eventually get a fancy cover for it and make a book out of it and put it on our nightstand and never read it. And if it gets very dusty, that will make you sneeze. And people will say, God bless you, because it was once believed that you were in danger of sneezing out your spirit, and you needed God to get it back in for you. At least Pope Gregory the Great, the Pope around the year 600, told people during the bubonic plague in Europe to say, God bless you when they heard someone sneeze, so they wouldn't catch the so-called Black Death. Religion, from the Latin word for being tied up. Spirituality, from the Latin word for wind. If you don't think those things are different, try to tie up the wind sometime. Even catch it. And with these root meanings in mind, I'd like to offer my reflections on the difference between religion and spirituality. Religion is the things that tie you up, that fasten you together. In other words, it's all about rules. Religion is easier to talk about than spirituality. Ask someone what religion they are and get a fairly straightforward answer. Know what rules they have or don't have. What is your spirituality? You may get a blank stare. Your spirituality is not revealed in your beliefs or creeds, revealed in your insights. One way to grasp the difference between religion and spirituality, then, is to look at the difference between doctrines. A doctrine is something that's given to you. Insight is something you have yourself. No one else can have an insight for you. No one can have an aha moment for you. Insight, like everything else about spirituality, is something that happens within you. It's never borrowed or accepted from someone else, as a doctrine is. As an example, the doctrine of the incarnation, that teaching that God has come down into the world in earthly form, was made flesh and dwelt amongst us, as Christians might put it, or Rani Padme Hum, as Tibetan Buddhists might put it, which means the jewel is in the lotus, or the divine is here in the world. Person who thought of this idea of incarnation, it was an insight. For everyone who accepts it only because someone passed it on to them, it's doctrine. You know the difference because you don't think the same way about doctrines and insights. The first person who thought up the incarnation probably said, "Hey, I just had a fantastic insight about the divine." Did not say, "Hey, I just had a doctrine." Really, was it a boy or a girl? And something else that reveals the kind of spirituality you have is which grounds your ethical or moral behavior. In other words, the reason you try to be good. If you're loving your neighbor as yourself for what it'll get you in the end, then ethics are grounded only in religion. A spiritual person has inside reasons for doing good. You have only religion. That's why they don't trust people who don't believe in hell. See, if you have only outside reasons for love, those who don't have outside reasons can't love at all, which is a great irony. For I say about those who love only for what it gets them, love is that. Swami Vivekananda, one of the founders of the Ramakrishna orders of monks in India in the late 19th century, once put it this way. He said, "The dualist thinks you can't be moral unless you have a God with a rod in his hand, ready to punish you. The kind of person is like the horse who was once asked to give a lecture on morality. It was one of those wretched cab horses who moved only with the whip. And he began his lecture by saying, human beings are very immoral. When he was asked why humans are immoral, the horse answered, no, they're not whipped regularly. From this point of view, he was right. An Islamic story with the same message, but from a slightly different angle, is the angel who was seen walking the earth with a bucket of water in one hand and a torch in the other. When asked what she was doing, the angel replied, with water, I'm going to put out all the fires of hell. And with the torch, I'm going to burn down all the castles in heaven. Then we'll see who really loves God and their neighbor. When all your reasons for loving your neighbor are outside ones, you've got religion only. When you love your neighbor because that makes you part of something bigger than you, thing is more truly you than the you otherwise are, is spirituality. You see, in a lot of ways, the various religions of the world are not all that different from each other. I was on my first sabbatical back in 1984. I saw people in India praying at the shrines of Muslim saints, and people in China praying to Taoist deities, and people in Japan praying to Shinto gods, and people in Nepal praying to various Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Our guide in Jaipur dropped some money at a shrine to a Hindu goddess to make sure we had a safe trip down a steep and narrow road. So whether you call your travel guide Lakshmi or St. Christopher, turn a prayer wheel or pray the rosary, chant a mantra or read the Bible, there's not really that much difference between those things. All you're doing is using them to bring you good fortune. There's nothing spiritual about that. But I'll tell you, I saw that all over. People using their religions like so many magic formulas in China, in India, in Japan, in the US. And I'm not condemning it. I'm just saying I don't think it's all that spiritual. Yes, it's very religious. Religion is all about rules. It may vary a little from religion to religion. Down to it, there's not that much difference between a Hindu farmer praying at the local temple for rain and the Japanese oil merchant traveling the Persian Gulf with his Shinto shrine aboard ship for safe sailing. The American mother asking the Blessed Virgin to help her child do well in school. The names are different, but the rules are pretty much the same. On the other hand, just as Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity are in some respects not all that different as religions, the spirituality possible in each is not that different either. If you compare the lives of the great mystics and prophets in various religions of the world, surprising similarities. All, an overriding sense of their oneness with all people, even all creation, and the appearance of the ego. This is something all of us can come to know at times. And you don't need any healing crystals to do this. You don't need to commune with spirits of the dead or people from other planets. You don't need to read Shirley MacLaine. I'm not saying any of those are bad, but I am saying that by themselves, they are not spirituality any more than conventional religions are. Rules and magic formulas would be helpful props at times, but are substitutes for the real thing. And by the way, if you think spirituality will free you from the burdens of religion, and you're wrong. It will free you from the rules that were never really you. So doing, it will force you to uncover new ideals that do lie within you, which mean new rules of your own that'll take plenty of sweat and sacrifice to carry out. In fact, you never will carry them all out. A lot of religions have goals that you can achieve, actions to carry out or rituals to perform. You pretty much know you've made it if you fulfill the right criteria. Spirituality doesn't allow for that. It presumes you even know all the goals, let alone that you could actually achieve them. Too much like wind. Unitarian Universalism has taken many of the rules away. It doesn't give you the opportunity to fulfill a lot of them and then feel smug. Because of our lack of creeds and rules, you might get the impression that Unitarianism is not much of a religion. And I think you might be right. We're not much of a religion. We are thereby in a good position to offer you a diving board into spirituality. Take the dive. You can probably be quite comfortable here without taking it because you see, Unitarian Universalism also offers you the opportunity of not being a very spiritual person. But if you do take the dive, you'll find the peace that disturbs, a power within you that some will call God and some will call quiet confidence and some will call the inner light or Buddha or Christ, magic stone. And you won't care that much about what it's called because you'll know that it transcends creeds and categories. And you will be grateful for religions, for after all, a lot of spiritual thought would not have been generated and passed on without an institutional vehicle to carry it. But you'll know that ultimately, spirituality asks something more of you than religion does. And you'll know these things about the difference between the two. Religion is a binding. Spirituality frees you from that binding and then creates a new one for you. Religion is playing by the rules. Spirituality is making some of them up. Religion is a sedative, often, what Marx called the opiate of the masses. Spirituality is not a sedative, it's a stimulant. Religion is given to you from on high. Spirituality is an inside job, and a job you can't hire anyone else to do for you. You have a religion, you are a spirituality. Religion is what you give to people who are afraid to be spiritual. Spirituality is something you can't give to anyone else, but it would be to those who are no longer afraid. Religion is for those who fear hell. Spirituality is for those who've already been there. And that's all I really have to say about it. You may think I haven't neatly tied up the subject this morning. I haven't given you a very precise definition of spirituality. All I can answer to that is, if I could give you a precise verbal definition, it would be spirituality. It would be a tying up with rules. And there's not much room in that for wind.
a tree as it grows. You can hear it if you listen to the wind as it blows. It's there in the river as it flows into the sea. It's the sound in the soul of someone becoming free. And it lives in the laughter of children at play, and in the blazing sun that gives life to the day. It moves the planets and the stars in the sky. It's been the mover of mountains since the beginning of time. Oh, mystery, you are alive. I feel you all around. You are the fire in my heart. You are the holy sound. You are all of life, and it is to you that I sing. Oh, grant that I may feel you always in everything. Oh, grant that I may feel you always in everything. And it lives in the waves that crash upon the beach. I've seen it in the gods that people have tried to reach, and I feel it in the love that I know we need so much, and I know it in your smile, my love, when our hearts do touch. Oh, mystery, you are alive. I feel you all around. You are the fire in my heart. You are the holy sound. You are all of life, and it is to you that I sing. Oh, grant that I may feel you always in everything. Oh, grant that I may feel you always in everything.
Our closing words are from a United Church of Christ minister, Lillian Daniel, who posted some comments on religion and spirituality. Incidentally, United Church of Christ, or UCC, people say stands for Unitarians Considering Christ. I heard that from a UCC minister once. But it's a very rural Christian denomination, and actually, Universalists share our sex education program with them. It's the same program. Anyway, so Reverend Lillian Daniel posted these comments on religion and spirituality, and she took a somewhat different tack than I did, but I think what she says is equally valid. So I offer them as my closing words today, what she wrote. On airplanes, I dread the conversation with the person who finds out I am a minister, wants to use the flight time to explain to me that they are spiritual but not religious. Such a person will always share this as if it is some kind of daring insight unique to them. Wilderness rebellion against the religious status quo. Next thing you know, they're bold in. Next thing you know, they're telling me that they find God in sunsets. These people always find God in sunsets. As if people who go to church don't see God in the sunset. You know, these monastic little hermits who never leave the church building. Being privately spiritual but not religious doesn't interest me. There's nothing challenging about having deep thoughts all by oneself. What's interesting is doing this work in community. People might call you on stuff, or forbid, disagree with you. I think where life gets rich and provocative, she says, is when you dig deeply into a tradition that you did not invent all for yourself. And I say, that's why this church is here. A place to dive off on your spiritual journey with others who may or may not be on exactly the same path as yours. Wonderful insights to share nonetheless, as do you. Our closing hymn, 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky, written incidentally by the mother of the daughter who married the son of a former member of my last church. I never met her, but I'm sort of convolutedly tied in with her. So, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky, number 301.
Touch the earth, reach the sky, walk on shores while spirits fly over the ocean, over the land, our faith a quest to understand. Touch the earth, reach the sky, children ask the reasons why. In our lives the answers show, and by our love they learn and grow. Touch the earth, reach the sky, all are born and all shall die. Lies the time left in between, to follow a star, to build a dream. Touch the earth, reach the sky, walk the laughter, feel the cry. May we see where we can give, for that is what it means to live. Touch the earth, reach the sky, soar with courage ever high. Spirits joining as we fly, to touch the earth, to reach the sky.
Please join me in our words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not like truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.